Hi, everybody. My name's Ethan Du Bois, and this is my oral exam too. So to begin, we're going to talk a little bit about energy sprawl. And I think it's no surprise to anyone that with the increase in population and the increase in development here in the United States, the demand for energy continues to rise, which really leads to a situation where we're looking at how do we meet those demands in a more sustainable way. And one of the problems with that is energy sprawl, which is defined as the amount of energy an area can produce in a given amount of space. And that creates problems in terms of renewable energy, mainly because the amount of space it typically takes up. When you think about a farm field full of wind turbines versus a plant or a nuclear power plant, in some cases the farm field could be endless. For me here in New Jersey, we have a nuclear power plant that gives electric to maybe 5 or 6 towns right here along the coast. And when you think about the amount of wind turbines needed to power a city, it's probably endless when you're looking at it from one way. So that leads to real difficulties and challenges, in terms of planning it and, doing this in the best possible way. It requires a lot more thought than just putting a plant somewhere. But one of the ways we can help aid in that is multilateral development banks, which is defined by the US Treasury Department as institutions which provide financial and technical support to help strengthen economic management and reduce poverty. And these, span across not only the United States, but also, into different countries. And basically, they provide opportunity to support funding and for research, on how we can do this in a more sustainable manner. And they give the ability to create a sort of standard to how to use this or how we should operate and go about this. And this could be kind of in the form of best management practices, but ultimately just, finding a way on a method on how we can do this in the most practical, efficient way to meet all our needs here. So for work, I deal with a lot of best management practices in terms of utility companies and veg maintenance. And that kind of led me to be interested in the best management practices for some of these sustainable energy projects. So I found an article discussing North Dakota's best management practices for wind, which was published in June of 2021. And in the introduction, I thought this quote really stood out to me, and it said, "Without appropriate planning, solutions intended to decrease emissions could turn into new challenges." And I thought that was a great way to put it. I think today, we're so focused on solving these big problems that may have political means to them and whatnot. That oftentimes we're just creating a new problem somewhere else. So best management practices are a way to, get something in writing and provide some backbone to some of these suggestions, so that everybody has to follow them and they can be enforced and ultimately provide, the best outcome for everybody. So in North Dakota, the state was really concerned about two things: species of concern and habitats of concern. And in some cases, those were linked, and in some cases, they weren't. But a unique thing about North Dakota is that they do not have state listed species. I believe it said that they had 110 federally listed species in state. But obviously that would be more difficult in states that did have state listed species. There would be more things of concern and whatnot. But that was their two main focuses in this planning. And they started by really thinking about how could wind energy impact these species and these habitats. And the big four were collisions, habitat loss, displacement, and fragmentation, along with a combination of all of these. And they did a risk analysis on all these. And as you can see in the right, this is just a screenshot of a piece of them. It dealt with whooping crane. Does the whooping crane occur in 50% corridor? Is there more than 2 bald eagle nests within a 2-mile buffer? Things like that. And that ultimately created areas of emphasis in terms of, where we really need to focus on staying out of, or where this is a good possibility, to implement some of these measures. So here is a direct pullout from the best management practices that they found. And I'm not going to go through all these, but there's some of the ones that I found more interesting, or, kind of related to the ones that I see every day. And, some of them are really obvious. It's avoid disturbance to native unbroken habitats. That was the first one they listed. And that's probably the biggest thing, what's already protected. Let's keep it protected. They had to protect in land that was enrolled in other programs. They had, avoid putting turbines, within so many feet of different habitats. And I thought that was good. And that kind of left a good thing. They talked about using existing roads when they could. And then, they deferred to other pieces of, management techniques, like the Avian Power Line Interaction Committee, which is something I deal with here. They defer to kind of more different expertise on some topics, which I thought was really good and gives them, kind of the best set of practices to use here. So obviously with this, pre and post construction monitoring is a huge piece, because ultimately it allows for adaptive management. If something's going really wrong, you want to be able to change it. And if something's going right and, you're not seeing any detrimental activities, maybe you could increase the amount of turbines there and whatnot. So some of the things they talked about doing was, doing pre-construction monitoring for raptor nests, threatened and endangered species, especially bats. Bats have a real problem with the wind turbines. And then using scientific research to assess whether those problems, were likely to happen in certain situations. And depending on if you saw a sharp-shinned hawk nest, is there a timing or whatnot that would be best to avoid, construction during that time. And obviously following construction, the mortality surveys are needed, just in case something's going really wrong and we need to put our foot in. So I thought that was really interesting. And it kind of sets a baseline and gives these companies, or the state and agencies a little bit of backbone in terms of what they're willing to work with, what you can and can't do, and what's the best way to get this done and to make everybody happy. It's clear that we need this energy, and now it just becomes what's the best way we could do it with minimizing the most amount of impacts. Thank you.